Here we are, we're back, Undisputed Boxing. We're here to review Daniel Dubois versus Joe Joyce. The Juggernaut stops Daniel Dubois in round 10. Let's just jump straight into it. Rick, how did you see it? But before you give your analysis, just talk us through what your prediction was for the fight.
Do I have to?
Yes.
Well, this is where you end up looking stupid, isn't it, when it comes to these videos? So I think I said Dubois in within 6.
Yeah.
And we did do that video, a while ago, but I hadn't really changed my opinion massively. I mean, it's weird because the weigh-in was what you expect the weigh-in to be. There wasn't anything happening in the build-up. You do listen to a few people, I suppose, on fight week, and you can get sucked in a little bit. Like the Chisora fight, I remember getting sucked in a little bit by Hay going on about Chisora will beat Usyk and stuff. But I hadn't really changed my prediction. But I did start thinking, Joyce has been in with better operators than that. But I still didn't really change my mind. Mm-hmm. So I was, I think after 3 rounds, I still fancied it. And then I just can't get my head around Joyce. I've heard a few people online call him an optical illusion, and I'm beginning to think he is. Yeah. He just looked not good, but he seems to be effective. And that jab was finding its way home. And he won it off the jab, really. I mean, he did land a few other punches, and he got caught. I didn't think the fight was... I thought it'd be rawer, the fight. It was more technical than I thought. And Dubois just never really got going with his jab. And I'd been quite impressed with Dubois' jab over his last couple of fights. I thought it'd really come on. So, yeah, it's just, that's what happens in boxing sometimes. And you put 2 people together and, someone just ends up dominating more. I suppose the big thing is, was it a quit? And it was. Yeah. That's what everyone's saying today. And there's no way around it. If you call Brook a quit, this was definitely one and probably worse.
Yeah. What did you were you scoring the fight? How did you score it? So up until, because it finished in round 10, so we've got 9 rounds. Yeah. How did you have it?
I'll be honest, I wasn't scoring it because when I go into a fight thinking that it's going to be a KO early on, I don't bother scoring it. Yeah. So I can't say I sat down and actually scored it like I do with some. It felt close. I felt Joyce was probably slightly up. I heard the scorecards were 2-1, and 2 of them had them 2 rounds up either way, and 1 had Dubois by 8 rounds, which I thought was ridiculous. Yeah. But yeah, I thought it was close, and I didn't expect it to end in that way. I thought, well, your prediction could be right. I think you said Dubois on points, and thought you got a fair shout of that. And I was looking forward to kind of the last 3 rounds, hoping it was going to step up a bit. They never really got trading leather in the pocket too much. It was kept at distance to some degree, and it was, I won't call it all about a battle of the jabs, but it was more technical than I expected. I thought it'd be a bit more white AJ, where it just was like a proper fight and going for it.
This was a lot more.
Yeah, I was expecting to be a bit like that at some stage. It never got going. Yeah. So I didn't think it was a great spectacle, if I'm honest.
No, it wasn't a classic. Yeah, I think one of the reasons why I went for a points win on Dubois, I think because Dubois is obviously that's really the guy that they're backing, and I did think that maybe the judges may sort of slightly favour sort of Dubois. I think he'd get the rub of the green on the judges, and because Joyce isn't particularly attractive to watch, and I just didn't really subscribe to if Daniel Dubois wasn't able to get Kevin Johnson out of there, and I do know that Joe Joyce has got a good chin. I just couldn't see a Dubois knockout on Joyce because he does have a very good chin, and he's been in there with world-class operators as well in Usyk and Filip Hrgovic and in the amateurs. But I gave Joyce the first round, and then Dubois, I think I gave him 2, 3, and 4, because actually Joyce started really well, which is quite rare for him because he is usually a slow starter, but he actually started really well. He established his jab, he got the center of the ring, and he actually took control. And I was like, this is going to be interesting. And then Dubois kind of turned up the heat, and he was obviously going for the knockout. And round 2, 3, and 4, he started to get his 1-2 going. He still looked quite sort of one-dimensional, but he rocked. It looked like he rocked Joe Joyce. He definitely caught him with that right hand, but he was telegraphing it a little bit. And I think Joe Joyce was starting to get a read on it, and he pretty much ate his biggest shot. And he actually looked like he was starting to gas out a little bit, especially in 3, 4, and 5. Like when he sat down, I think it was 5 or 6, where he sat down on the stool and he looked terrible. Like he did not look good. He looked gassed out. And I think Joe Joyce actually probably grew from that point in the fight, and it looked like, the pendulum was starting to swing, sort of his way. He was growing in confidence because he'd taken his biggest shot. And I thought that Dubois actually looked a little bit more nervous. Like Joe Joyce looked a lot more composed, a lot more relaxed. And I think that was quite telling. And I think, as we got into kind of round 7, 8, 9, I was actually starting to think, Joyce could actually get this on points. And that was the way it was looking to go. And I was quite surprised, at the stoppage. I'm not surprised with the result, but because, we were going into this, it was a 50-50 fight. There's no getting away from that. But I was quite surprised that, how it ended, and, taking a knee and quitting. And it's never a good look. Never a good look to take a knee like that in boxing. And Carl Frampton and, David Hay, in immediate reaction, they were quite, they were pretty scathing as well on that time. And it's going to be quite tough for him to come back to that and come back from that. And I think that the path to getting back into contention is going to be a lot longer now because of the manner of the defeat. If it had been a close points defeat, then you'd think, okay, you lost that one on points, a couple of wins, and you can maybe get back into contention. I think this is really kind of going back to the drawing board a little bit. Where do you think he goes from here, Dubois?
Just before I answer, a couple of things you reminded me of. One of the things with I do think Joyce got a good chin, but he has been down in the amateurs. I think Kuzman got him down. Now he got back up, but I remember thinking, if that's happening, Dubois, has got the power to hurt him. But you're right, he did take his best shots. I don't think he landed many big shots, if I'm honest. And I think, again, this is another optical illusion with Joyce. He's slow, but weirdly his punches are effective.
Yeah.
And he seems to, though he looks like he's easy to hit, he doesn't get caught that often. Or when he has been caught, I've seen a few fights where he's been caught, and I think it's because he's not really respected the person. But Dubois wasn't catching him easily at all. But I don't know how, because he looks easy to hit. I agree with what you said about gassing out. I think I don't know. I don't know if he's put on too much weight. He's if you look at his pro debut to where he is now, I think he's put on something like 20 pounds or something like that. And now he was young when he started, so he should grow a bit. But I don't know. He just looks heavier now, and is that impacting? And it might be, like you said, he did look more nervous, and there's nervous energy. But he seemed to throw a few attacks or throw an attack, and then he'd have to come back, and not because he was tagged with anything, just because he looked a bit exhausted, which kind of isn't great. So quite a few things going on in terms of where he goes. I think you're right. I think it's hard for him to, and BT and Warren, they've been backing him, so they look a bit stupid, but that's what happens when you back someone, like I kind of did in my prediction. But it's going to be a long way back for him, and he's going to have to probably fight some crap. I think next year will be a rebuild year for him. They're on about a rematch. I'm not particularly bothered about seeing that again, if I'm honest. Not yet, anyway. Maybe further down the line, but John won't want to do that again.
What do you make of that? Because it was a really awkward interview. They asked Frank Warren his assessment on it, and he was already starting to talk about, when he said the word rematch, Joe Joyce's face just dropped. It's as if we're going to go down that road. And I also think it was a little bit kind of cynical on his part, because I don't know how much he spoke with Dubois after that fight, but if they go straight back into a rematch, you'd have to say that Joyce would be a heavy favourite for that rematch if they were to do it. And is that going to be a good thing for Dubois' career to go in to a fight like that again?
I can't see it being a rematch.
No.
Not an instant one. I think Dubois needs to go down quite a few levels, banjo someone out in a few rounds, and then, you know, it's another. What Warren seems to pad his fighters out a fair bit, and then he jumps up a level quite quick into a high level. I mean, you cut Yard, you know, not really fighting much, and then goes into a big fight, and you don't get, you know, you almost need them to go into a war and get through it, you know, to see how good they really are, and just to experience it. I mean,
that chin check. You need the chin check. I mean, Anthony Yard went into that fight with Kovalev with barely a scratch on him. I don't think he'd ever really had. He definitely had any wars. Had he really had, you know, had he been rocked, or had he been, you know, in the trenches? I don't think he had. Like, they were pretty much all walkover jobs.
You need a Buatsi fight. Like, so when I say Buatsi, like Buatsi had his last fight. That was a tough fight, and he got through it, but it was tough enough that it was too much for him. But that would mean if he went up another level now, he'd be a bit more ready for it, because, you know, his eye was pretty bad as well, and and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I've heard a few people in the past say, you know, Dubois is like a child in a man's body because of the way his personality is, and that he's very kind of thing. And it, you know, is that what came out when he wanted to stop? You know, it's. I don't think I'm trying to think I've ever seen that before. I mean, it did remind me a bit of the Brook one, but Brook had been down at least, I think, once or twice before that, and he was taking a bit of a, you know, probably more of an intense pounding, and they did turn out to be proper socket damage.
Yeah, well, let's not forget he had the same injury against Golovkin, and actually, you know, Dominic Ingle had to drag him out of that fight. He was, you know, Kell Brook was actually fighting on, so, you know, Kell Brook was, you know, he showed obviously a little bit more heart in that instance, but yeah, I can't think of I can't think of anybody myself.
Because he was in the fight. I mean, it was. I mean, I can't see out of it and what you can't, but it looked like it had been closed for a bit. But I know he got hit straight on it, and it must have been really painful. But it's the fight game, isn't it? And you know, if he'd been getting battered and he'd been on his knees a couple of times before that, then I get it a bit more. But so I just think anyone going in who's half decent will think, if I put it on this guy, he hasn't got the grit to get through it. Now, he is young and obviously can come again, but yeah, it's going to be. I think it's going to be fighting a bit of shit now. I think he's going to have a fair few fights and then step up into a fight where he's going to be he could be in a bit of trouble, but not as much as that. And as for,
I think that injury is going to rule him out for at least 4 or 5 months anyway. I got confirmation that he did actually fracture his eye socket, and apparently there's some nerve damage. So, you know, that really sort of confirms that, you know, it wasn't just, you know, a closing of the eye. But also, I mean, just on the final point on this fight, you know, Joe Joyce is easily hit, but so is Daniel Dubois. He doesn't have that much head movement. And, you know, Joe Joyce was catching him with that jab, you know, for fun. You know, if he could just start to slip a few punches and, you know, be a bit quicker on his feet, and that probably leads to your point about maybe he's put on a bit too much weight. Maybe if he kind of, you know, took a few, you know, bit more weight off and was a little bit, you know, had a bit more energy and was quicker around the ring and starts to slip punches. I think he definitely needs to add a few things to his game. I think if he's going to break into that top 10 and get into get into world title contention, because he's a long way off that now, I think. Yeah.
So Joyce is likely. I mean, he'll be eyeing up the Usyk fight in a sense, and that's a rematch in itself, isn't it? That'll be interesting.
It would be interesting. I just don't know how I would call that. Whether Usyk, you know, I think that's an easy win for Usyk, to be honest. But I tell you, another interesting point about this is, you know, where's Joe Joyce's fight next going to be? You know, who's he going to be fighting with? Because I think he's on a fight-by-fight deal with Queensberry, and there isn't really an obvious. If he doesn't fight Usyk next, there isn't really a big stable of heavyweights in Queensberry for him to fight. Whereas if he goes across to Matchroom, there's a lot of very interesting fights, big money fights as well. And also I know that I watched an interview with Sam Jones, and I think they're only looking at 2 or 3 years maximum for Joe Joyce to be fighting. So that's probably going to be 2 fights a year. He's going to have like 5 or 6 fights now between now and the end of his career. So they're going to want to get a move on, and with that he's going to want big money. And I just don't know if the fights are going to be there, for him at Queensberry.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure his contractual arrangement, but yeah, you're right, and maybe that's why Frank's calling for the rematch, because it's the only thing he can kind of offer up to keep Joyce and get more money out from him. But yeah, I mean, he doesn't fight Usyk because Usyk could fight Joshua. I suppose it depends what happens. Who would be a good fight for him if it wasn't Usyk? I mean, it would be good to see. It'd be good to see him in with a Chisora, I suppose, just to see, are you at that level?
He's European title, British title, Commonwealth title. So he's got to be finding somebody that fringe world level. So maybe somebody that is low risk, but is a bit of a name. So like somebody like a Chisora would be an obvious one. Who else?
Get old Pricey back.
Yeah.
That one class.
They've sparred a lot. I don't know if Pricey would fancy that. But yeah, I think somebody like that I think would be good for him. And yeah, he probably will have to get a keep busy fight April, but he's not going to want to take any risks because he's I don't know how it works for the WO, whether he automatically takes Dubois' position, but he's got to be very high up in the rankings now for the WBO, so he'll be in a prime position now for a world title. So I don't think he'll want to take any risks.
I mean, I don't know what the hell Dubois is doing there anyway.
At Queensberry.
No, in the rankings.
Oh yeah. Well, it's farcical. Yeah, but no.
They just make it up, don't they?
Yeah. Did you? What did you make of the rest of the card? Did you see any other fights? There's lots of boxing on this weekend.
I didn't. I only saw the Adelaide one.
Right. Yeah, I saw that.
That was quite brief. Looked quite good, but just was in with a bin man, wasn't he? Really. So going through the paces, 4th fight or something.
Yeah.
So hard to gauge, isn't it?
Yeah, I did see the Daniel Jacobs and Gabe Rosado fight, and really poor fight. I don't know if I'm ever going to get that. Well, I definitely will get that time back, but it was. I was quite interested because I think Daniel Jacobs is now potentially going to be in contention for a shot at a world title at super middleweight, but the performance he churned out. I mean, I don't know if he didn't have a very good camp, but there's a very strong case that Gabe Rosado actually won that fight. I mean, I didn't score it. I just watched it. I think it was very tight, but I think if you were to give it anybody, you'd give it to Gabriel Rosado. So I feel like he's been kind of, I feel bad for him really, because I actually thought he beat Martin Murray a couple of years ago. And I think he's one of those fighters. He's kind of known for being a bit of a brawler. And I think when they start to box and box off the back foot, they don't really get the kind of recognition, or they don't get the decision. I think Sam Egginson's a little bit like that as well. When he starts to box and he gets his jab working and good combinations together, they don't seem to get the kind of, I don't know, the recognition. But I saw that, and I saw Daniel Ulusunov beat Julius Ndongo. At welterweight, Julius Ndongo stepped up from light welterweight. He beat Ricky Burns a few years ago, but then obviously has since been beaten by Terence Crawford and Regis Prograis. But still a huge step up for Daniel Ulusunov, and I was actually really impressed with him. I thought he looked really good.
I've heard good things about him.
Ulusunov,
really rate him, yeah.
Yeah, well, on the amateur scene, I mean, he beat Josh Kelly in the finals, and I mean, he looks the business. I was really impressed. I hadn't been that impressed up until now, but that performance on Friday, he looked really good. So yeah, promising things from him. And that's about it from me. All right, how long have
We both dodged the Mike Tyson fight.
Well, do you know what? I did actually watch, I think, the first 6 rounds, only because I wasn't doing anything else. But I really wasn't that interested in it, to be honest. And I know that there was a YouTube fight on the undercard, and I think that's probably what's going to help the pay-per-view. But I just think it's a little bit, I don't know, 2 guys in their 50s, and they're charging 20 quid for it, and it's at 4 a.m. I don't know. It's not something. It's just not for me. I much prefer, the here and now. And I think it's a little bit sad when you see legends of the sport. Mike Tyson hasn't had a competitive fight for over 15 years, and he was shot to pieces then. Losing to Danny Williams and Kevin McBride, and
Oh, yeah, some bad defeats towards the end. I mean, embarrassing defeats, really. But then again, so did Jones Jr.
Yeah. So yeah, but he'd been active up until a couple of years ago, so it was obvious that he would be the fresher and more likely to win. But yeah, I'll end up going into a rant about that. So probably best to avoid that. So yeah, let's wrap it up. All right, thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe.